Since the end of World War I, the German people have suffered the consequences of defeat. The economy is in ruins, and more than a third of the workforce is unemployed. One of these unemployed workers remembers.
Thousands of factories had closed down. Many honest Germans were forced to steal just to eat. We all dreamed of a better world. Like so many others, I had lost everything. That's why I joined the National Socialist Party.
September 1934. The National Socialist Party has been in power since its election victory 20 months ago. At the Buckeberg Harvest Festival, tens of thousands of Germans come to cheer their new leader, Chancellor and Führer Adolf Hitler.
The German people are living in terrible misery. We must defeat unemployment. Let the people give us 4 years before judging, and may Almighty God bless our work.
A school teacher, Louise Solmitz, attends the rally.
A shiver runs through the ecstatic crowd. The Führer arrives. The emotion is at its peak. It's an endless ovation. Many of us see him as a savior, the one who will pull us out of our unbearable misery.
Adolf Hitler.
It is our duty to tear out these dark pages of our history forever. Out of misery, distress, and poverty, a new German Reich will be born.
Hitler's rise to power sparks a wave of optimism. Testimony from a female doctor, Irtan Etorf.
Hitler is chancellor. It's all anyone talks about. Everyone seems happy, though you can see worry on some faces. But everyone agrees that now, things are going to change.
Little by little, living conditions for the German people improve. Unemployment is almost gone. Workers can even go on vacation abroad, thanks to subsidies from the German state. One of them, Hermann Schutz, heads to Italy.
Who would have thought a German worker could ever afford a holiday on the Italian Riviera? When we get back to Germany, we'll show our gratitude to the Führer by working twice as hard to help him reach his goals.
In Germany, the Nazis silence all political opposition. The police and courts are now under the Führer's authority. All power is in Hitler's hands.
You can all see me, and I can see all of you. But you feel I'm close to you, and I feel you're close to me. We are together, and together we are Germany.
September 1935. Hitler announces new decrees, making German Jews second-class citizens. Children are given lessons in racial education.
It's especially by his nose that you can recognize a Jew. From the side, it looks like the number 6. You can tell by his eyes that he's deceitful. Jews often smell bad. If your nose is sharp enough, you can smell a Jew.
Freedom of speech is ruthlessly suppressed. Tens of thousands are thrown in jail, like journalist Stéphane Laurent, who dared to criticize the Führer in his paper.
I'm writing from cell number 24. Outside, a new Germany is being born. Millions are happy about it. Hitler promises everyone exactly what they want, but when they come to their senses, they'll realize they've been taken for a ride and fooled.
August 1st, 1936. Hitler enters Berlin as Stadium, where the 10th Olympic Games are being held. He's determined to make these games a showcase for his new Germany. Jewish academic Victor Klemperer is in Berlin.
These Olympic Games disgust me. They've banned the slogans people use to shout in the streets. Anything that might offend, all those warlike or anti-Semitic feelings, they've all vanished from the press. They make a point of showing our guests that there's a peaceful, friendly atmosphere here.
The Germans win most of the medals. It's a personal triumph for Hitler.
In 1940, the Olympic Games will be held in Tokyo. But after that, all the games will be in Berlin forever.
Three weeks after the Olympics, Hitler meets a former British Prime Minister. He welcomes Lloyd George to his mountain chalet in Berchtesgaden, Bavaria. Hitler is accompanied by his interpreter, Paul Schmidt.
Hitler was thrilled that a world-famous statesman was coming to visit him. We were all sitting at a table near the window. He started talking excitedly about his experiences in the Great War, back when he was just a soldier. I often had to face the English, he said.
Lloyd George is so impressed by Hitler that he publishes an account of their meeting in a newspaper.
Hitler doesn't dream of a Germany that threatens Europe. The Germans have lost all desire to get into a conflict with us.
Like most European politicians, Lloyd George saw nothing of Hitler's cynicism. After this meeting, the Führer sends a secret note to his ministers.
The world is heading toward a new conflict. It's vital that our army becomes the best in the world, or Germany is finished. We have 4 years to prepare for war.
That same year, a few hundred kilometers further west, in the summer of 1936, the French are far from the martial atmosphere Hitler has imposed on Germany. They've just won paid vacations and the 40-hour work week. In Paris, a generation of intellectuals and artists still wants to believe in happiness and carefree living, despite the alarming signs coming from Germany. For several months now, public opinion has become aware of the danger Hitler represents. But memories of the Great War keep even the clearest minds from opposing Germany. A former soldier, writer Jean Janot, rejects any idea of war, on principle, no matter who the enemy is.
I can forget the war. I see it again. I feel it. I hear it, and I'm scared. I shake. I wet my pants. I'd rather focus on my own happiness. I don't want to sacrifice myself.
At the head of the French state, governments come and go, with no clear policy toward Germany. 3 years after Hitler came to power, France restarts its arms programs. But its military doctrine already seems outdated, as Charles de Gaulle, a colonel still unknown to the public, laments.
The military establishment was stuck in its old ways. The army clung to ideas that had been in place before the last war ended. These leaders grew old in their posts, attached to mistakes that once brought them glory.
Munich, July 1937. Adolf Hitler's personal pilot, SS Hans Bauer, accompanies him to a parade for the 200th anniversary of German culture. Bauer is allowed to film Hitler and the cheering crowd. Ingeborg Weber, a 14-year-old schoolgirl.
The 4 years the Führer asked of us are up. How much things have changed in Germany. The communists are gone. There's no more unemployment. Thanks to the Führer, we've regained our pride.
For 6 years, Adolf Hitler has kept a secret from the German people. His mistress, 25 years old. Only his inner circle knows about Eva Braun. The young woman keeps a diary.
The weather's beautiful. And me, the mistress of the greatest statesman in the world, I'm here sunbathing.
With a camera Hitler gave her, Eva Braun films their life together.
I'm so happy that he loves me so much. I pray it lasts forever. He only thinks about politics. He really should take a break sometimes.
Only the inner circle is allowed to meet Eva Braun. That includes architect Albert Speer.
I've never met anyone as secretive as Hitler. Even with Eva, he never completely lets his guard down. Eva and he avoid anything that might hint at their relationship, except at night when they go to bed at the same time. I'm starting to feel sympathy, even a bit of pity, for this woman who cares so much about him.
Eva Braun comes from a Catholic family. When Hitler gives her an apartment, her father writes to the Führer,
Your Excellency, I'm in the extremely delicate position of having to express my displeasure to you. I believe that parents' supervision over their children until marriage is a sacred duty. That's my guiding principle. I ask you to request that Eva return to the family home. Please accept, Your Excellency, the expression of my respectful feelings. Fritz Braun,
but Eva Braun intercepts the letter. The Führer will never read it. Hitler's mistress always seems happy. She's the center of attention for visitors. But the few fragments we have from her diary are often very different in tone.
When he says he loves me, it only means he loves me at that moment. It's like all those promises he never keeps. I'm horribly unhappy. I'm gonna end up buying sleeping pills. That way, I won't have to suffer anymore.
Eva Braun has already tried to kill herself twice. But Hitler stubbornly refuses to marry her.
A man of great intelligence needs a woman who's rough and stupid. Letting a woman meddle in my work. What an idea. In my free time, I just want peace and quiet. I'll never get married. It's just like in the movies. When an actor gets married, he loses some of his mystery in the eyes of his fans. He's no longer their idol.
September 28, 1937. Berliners are getting ready for the official visit of Italian dictator Mussolini. Hitler is building a military alliance in Europe.
By rearming Germany, we want to give ourselves a military tool. Not to attack, but to defend ourselves and keep the peace.
Hitler parades his new army in front of his fascist ally. Next to the two dictators is his interpreter, Paul Schmidt.
I had time to watch them. Hitler had a harsh, often hoarse voice and sometimes a bright look in his eyes. There was a hint of sarcasm in his laughter. That ceremony was strange. Mussolini gave Hitler the title of honorary corporal of the fascist militia.
Hitler is also about to sign a pact with Japan. With this alliance in place, he can move on to the next step. March 12, 1938. Nazi troops enter Austria without a fight. Hitler was born in Austria. He always dreamed of bringing his homeland into a greater German Reich. Karl Tischin is a soldier in the Austrian army.
Our leaders tell us not to resist the German troops. God protect Austria. The streets are packed with people. Everywhere, swastika flags are being raised. Hitler tells us he saved us from the communists. And so, everyone sides with the victors.
A month later, Austrians ratified their country's annexation by referendum. Hitler is overjoyed.
I'm convinced that heaven sent me, an Austrian, to Germany and raised me to the highest office. That's how it was meant for Austria to rejoin the Reich. It's the happiest day of my life.
It takes only a few weeks for Vienna's Jews to suffer the consequences of Hitler's return, the so-called savior of Austria. a 24-year-old Jewish student, Edith Hahn, helplessly witnesses the first persecutions.
The Nazis put up signs on Jewish shops to keep customers out. Anyone who doesn't obey gets beaten, killed, or deported to a concentration camp. Everyone's gone mad. They hated us from birth. They hated us when they were young. And now that the veneer of civilization is gone, there's nothing left to protect us from their hatred.
In his eagle's nest in the Bavarian Alps, Hitler is already making plans for his next conquest. The head of Nazi propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, writes,
Now it's Czechoslovakia's turn. The Führer is amazing, a real genius. He spends hours in front of the map, thinking things over. He's thrilled that the Czechs were being so stubborn. Now he can crush them. They have no idea what's coming. Poor fools.
Hitler claims that Germans living in Czechoslovakia in the Sudetenland are being oppressed. The German press reports made up assaults and rapes supposedly suffered by the German-speaking minority. There are reports of German troop movements. The Allies are now convinced that this obscure border conflict could lead to war. France, in particular, is getting scared. 13 years earlier, it signed a military alliance with Czechoslovakia. Now it fears it will have to come to their aid and be dragged into a conflict with Hitler's Germany. At the annual Nazi Party rally, Itsu announced that all negotiations with the Czech government have broken down. When Hitler begins his closing speech, the whole world is hanging on his every word.
Sie haben das Recht, ein eigenes Leben zu beanspruchen, genauso wie jedes andere Volk.
I demand the right to self-determination for the 3.5 million Germans in the Sudeten region. They should be free to decide which country they belong to. I demand an end to the oppression of Germans in Czechoslovakia.
Three weeks later, Czechoslovakia's fate is decided in Munich, when Hitler meets the Frenchman Daladier and the Briton Chamberlain. Panicked by the threat of war, he gives in to the Führer. The socialist Leon Blum sums up the general feeling.
War is probably avoided, but under such conditions that I can feel any joy. And I feel torn between cowardly relief and shame.
Hitler's troops are allowed to enter the Sudeten territories. Not a single shot is fired. June 12, 1939, the Führer visits his hometown of Fischlheim in Austria. Adolf Hitler is the son of a customs officer from the area. He lays flowers on his parents' grave before visiting his old school.
This is where my first ideals were born. By dealing with the toughest kids at school, I forged a strong character. It's here that I developed my speaking skills during heated arguments with my classmates. The fields and woods were my battlefields.
For Hitler's 50th birthday, a woman writes in a local newspaper,
For my children, the Führer is the one to obey no matter what. They see him as the creator of the universe.
a new song is taught to school children.
Adolf Hitler is our savior, our hero. He's the noblest person on earth. We live for Hitler. We die for Hitler. He's our Hitler. He's leading a better world.
All over Germany, thousands of new recruits swear an oath to the Führer. Hitler's aide-de-camp, Lieutenant Colonel Schmoon.
The Führer asks us for courage so we can solve our problems. The solution is expansion to the east. We have to attack Poland at the first opportunity. It's our only opening in Europe. We have no choice.
This time, France and England warn they're ready to go to war. The threat ISNT, taken seriously. Goebbels, head of propaganda, especially targets England.
We know those English idiots are too weak and too cowardly to stop us. The Führer thinks they have one of the worst governments ever. They're going to abandon Poland. They've got other problems to deal with. They're not going to do anything, that's for sure.
Before launching the attack on Poland, Hitler has to get rid of a major threat. In utmost secrecy, he sends a telegram to Soviet leader Joseph Stalin.
Mr. Stalin, tensions between Germany and Poland are becoming unbearable. A crisis is imminent. It would be best if our two countries formed a new alliance. I would appreciate a prompt reply. Adolf Hitler.
"48 hours later, Stalin promises not to oppose Hitler. More than 2 million men are waiting for the Führer to give the order to attack. Hitler is confident.
No one will ever again have this kind of trust from the German people. It's my move now. The leaders of our enemies are just puppets. I saw it in Munich. Worms. No mercy. Let's be ruthless. For the one who starts a war, what s important ISNT being right, it s winning.
On September 1st, 1939, at dawn, the German army attacks Poland. Across Germany, a message from Hitler is broadcast over loudspeakers announcing the news. A Berliner, Werner Hartz, is surprised by the apparent calm.
The streets are empty. There are no soldiers in sight. There's no cheering crowd, unlike in 1914. This time, the war started quietly, like in a fog.
By attacking Poland, Hitler starts a new world conflict. 2 days later, Paris and London declare war on Germany. An airfield near Warsaw falls into German hands. The Nazi invasion began just 3 weeks ago, and already the Poles are in retreat. Hitler, delighted, comes to congratulate his troops on the battlefield.
Entire columns of Polish soldiers have been taken prisoner. The rest have to surrender or lay down their arms, or they'll be wiped out.
According to the secret pact Hitler made with Stalin, the Red Army invades eastern Poland too. The Poles refuse to surrender. Hitler sends his air force and tanks against the city of Warsaw. Soldier Gerhard Meyer.
Soldier Gerhard Meyer.
We passed thousands of refugees in carts. People are fleeing. Our artillery had a field day. Everything's in ruins. By the roadside, people watch us go by. You can see the hatred in their eyes.
Hitler's victory causes the deaths of 70,000 people. Poland disappears as a state. Since Hitler's offensive, France is at war with Germany. The general mobilization catches Parisians by surprise at the end of summer and brings back memories of the 1914 war. What does Hitler have in store for us? Already, air raid warnings are going off one after another in the capital. Authorities say gas attacks on the population could be devastating. And yet, the war still feels so far away. In Paris, a young novelist, Simone de Beauvoir, writes in her journal,
People with their masks, acting important, the shuttered cafes. For now, it all feels like a joke. It doesn't feel like a real war yet. The question is how to kill time. What are we waiting for? The horror of the first battle?
Hitler hopes the destruction of Poland will serve as a lesson to France and England. He offers them peace, but it's refused, which infuriates him. Joseph Goebbels, Minister of Propaganda.
The Führer is convinced we'll win. French and British weapons are outdated. They don't have time to rebuild their military industry. By declaring war on us, France has made the biggest mistake in its history. That'll be proven soon enough.
Many French soldiers are also convinced they'll win. Since the Great War, they've had a reputation as the best soldiers in the world. 2 million men are heading to the border and the Maginot Line, said to be unbreakable. Back home, their wives, who take over the farm work, are reassured by news from the front. For months, the soldiers just sit and wait. Soldier and writer Claude Jamay comes up with a new phrase, the phony war.
It's a strange war, with no fighting.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Since war was officially declared, not a single cannon shot. Not a single shot fired. Anywhere.
Some officers, like General Lafargue, are worried.
Our units are just sitting around with no clear purpose. All they do is stand guard, waiting for leave.
These worries are justified. May 10th, 1940. Hitler launches the Blitzkrieg, the lightning war in the West. A massive attack planned long in advance. The German army bypasses the Maginot Line and heads for northern France. The Allies are caught off guard. German soldier Hans Gotthard writes to his wife,
My dear wife, how can I describe what I'm living through? Everywhere, you can sense our troops advancing. You hear the artillery all the time. We follow the explosions.
In just 15 days, the German army has routed the Allies. After the phony war, it's a rout. The High Command-S mistakes only add to the panic. French tanks are as numerous as German ones, but they're scattered along the front. The Air Force is grounded in just a few days. On the roads of the north and east, French soldiers faced the German steamroller. Jean Cazin from the 87th Infantry Division is one of them.
For 2 days, the Krauts have been attacking relentlessly. They're young guys, just arrived from Belgium. We're a defenseless crowd at the mercy of the planes, with no real anti-aircraft to fight back.
A few kilometers away is gunner René Schau.
You can hear the tanks coming. The planes keep diving on us, dropping bombs and then strafing. It's every man for himself. The towns we pass through are on fire. I see officers crying like kids.
"100,000 French soldiers will die in combat. Nearly 2 million, including gunner René Schau, will be taken prisoner." At Dunkirk, the British Army and thousands of encircled French soldiers flee to England in panic, under fire from German Stuka planes. That day, pilot Peter Suff flies over Dunkirk beach.
How do you describe panic? Imagine utter chaos on the beaches. Weapons, abandoned cannons, vehicles, and tanks everywhere. The fall of Dunkirk handed us the Belgian and French coasts in one go.
After this first battle, France is completely isolated. Now it's the civilians who are fleeing. With Hitler's troops advancing, 8 million French people are on the roads. Jean Cazin.
Columns of refugees clog the roads, fleeing Paris and its suburbs. While waiting for permission to cross the bridges, lines of cars are parked. Some have been waiting for 4 days.
At the same time, somewhere in eastern France, Hans Bauer, Hitler's pilot, films the Führer's triumphant arrival.
Soldiers of the Western Front, you did not let me down. The boldest plan in the history of war succeeded thanks to your unmatched bravery. Our enemies will remember our victory for a long time. Let this be a lesson to them.
Hitler is at the height of his ambitions. Nothing seems able to stop him. But for some German soldiers, this victory leaves a bitter taste. Soldier Hans Gothard writes to his wife,
My dear wife, I feel terribly bad. My unit is now acting with a childish cruelty. When we win the war, I can just imagine all the enthusiastic speeches we'll hear about the high command's qualities and the troops' morale. But nothing could be further from the truth. If we won, it was only because of our cruelty. With a heavy heart, I tell you today that we must stop fighting.
Last night, I addressed the enemy. June 17, 1940, Marshal Pétain, the new head of government, speaks to the French people. He has just asked Hitler for an armistice. The German army enters Paris. Police Commissioner Fernand Dupuy witnesses the first hours of the occupation.
The first Nazi divisions appear at the Étoile. So here before our eyes are those famous German soldiers, most of them blonde, all clean-shaven in their greenish uniforms. A few onlookers watch this shocking scene in dismay.
The dark years have begun. The novelist Simone de Beauvoir.
It was hell. Victory was written on every German face. Every French face was a glaring defeat.
Two weeks later, on June 28th at 6 a.m., Hitler himself enters Paris.
Paris is the most beautiful city in Europe, and it was my dream to visit it. But Berlin, our capital, must become even more beautiful. I've often wondered if Paris shouldn't be destroyed. But when we're done with Berlin, Paris will be just a shadow. Then, destroying it will be pointless.
Yet some French soldiers and officers refuse to accept defeat. With several warships, they joined England at General de Gaulle's call on June 18th.
I, General de Gaulle, call upon all French military personnel of the Army, Navy, and Air Force, wherever they may be right now.
Raymond Drone, 32, is one of the first to join Free France.
Long live Free France.
I studied in Germany. I knew what Nazism was. I told myself we should never allow that here. I was determined to keep fighting, wherever that might be. I heard de Gaulle and thought, that's the path to follow.
Back from the French campaign, Hitler is greeted by thousands of cheering Germans. He renews his offer of peace to Prime Minister Winston Churchill.
The British must listen to me. Continuing the war will mean the total destruction of one of our two nations. And I know it will be Great Britain that disappears.
I appeal to reason one last time. Winston Churchill turns down this offer. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and strength in the air.
Growing confidence and growing strength in the air.
In the summer of 1940, the Battle of Britain begins. Hitler is convinced his pilots must destroy enemy fighters before even thinking about invading England. But this time, the German Air Force is held in check. Pilot Ulrich Steinelper writes to his loved ones.
I shot down my 4th Spitfire, but it cost me an excellent pilot. Yesterday, we had casualties 3 times. My wingman was killed too. Of the original crew, only 12 of us are left. The English have a new engine in their planes. We're struggling to keep up.
A week later, Ulrich Steinlepper is shot down himself while flying over England. To make a statement, Churchill decides to bomb Berlin. Hitler, furious, changes his strategy. From now on, German planes will target the British population itself.
If the British Air Force drops 2,000 or 4,000 bombs on us, we'll drop 200,000, 400,000, or even 1 million in a single night. And if they step up their attacks, we'll wipe their city off the map.
Hitler's pilots attack England day and night. In 9 months, the bombings kill over 40,000 people. But the British don't give in. The German Air Force starts taking heavy losses. Bomber pilot Peter Stahl is worried.
October 16th. We've lost 4 bombers with their crews. In the official report, they'll only mention the heavy damage our brave airmen inflicted on the enemy. And they'll downplay our losses. I wish I could be far from here.
By May 1941, Hitler knows the Battle of Britain is lost. For the first time, he's met his match.
I'm not the kind of man to give up a fight I've started. I've already proven that. And I'll prove it again to Churchill.
In the conquered provinces to the east, German victory brings a new, especially brutal regime. Hitler is determined to put his racist theories into practice.
Under their Germanic veneer, the Poles are made of vile stuff. The Jews, the most disgusting thing there is. If Poland had kept resisting, the whole country would be crawling with vermin. What we need is a firm hand, able to cut deep.
Hitler forces all Jews to wear an armband to set them apart from others. They're rounded up and locked in ghettos. The largest is in Warsaw, the capital of Poland. "400,000 Jews are crammed within these walls. Among them, a 17-year-old girl, Marie Berg.
The ghetto is more and more overcrowded. New refugees arrive all the time. People are barefoot and in rags. You can see hunger in their eyes. Every day, 40 to 50 people die of hunger. I saw a little girl crying. She looked at me with her big blue eyes and said, "I'm hungry." Why doesn't anyone come to help us? How much longer will we have to stay here?
By the end of 1942, nearly 300,000 men, women, and children had already been deported from the Warsaw Ghetto to the Treblinka death camp. Hitler's final solution has begun. It will be carried out all over occupied Europe, especially in France. In freight trains like this one, over 70,000 Jews are deported to Hitler's concentration camps with the support of the French authorities. "2,500 of them will return from the camps. From October 1940, Marshal Pétain chose a path of collaboration with Hitler.
French people, I have met with the Reich Chancellor. Collaboration between our two countries has been considered.
France agrees to be part of the new Europe the Nazis dream of.
As part of constructive activity for the new European order, today I am entering the path of collaboration.
France is split in two. The Vichy regime keeps control of the Free Zone in the south. The Nazis occupy the north and the Atlantic coast. They act like conquerors there. While on leave, they film France as they'd like to see it, a submissive and welcoming nation. Hitler's army enjoys the French way of life. But the reality is darker. Writer Jean Gehenna writes in his diary,
The air is getting harder and harder to breathe. In some neighborhoods, the police block the streets. Jews are arrested, communists are shot or threatened with death. The occupier spreads terror. Young draft dodgers are hanged. In their southern village, every day brings news of new horrors.
Hitler failed before England, but he controls much of Europe. He then gives orders to prepare for a new war, this time against his ally, the Soviet Union. General Halder, Chief of Staff, is enthusiastic.
The Führer says that if we manage to defeat the USSR, Britain will lose its last hope of winning the war. So we must destroy Russia.
But other German generals are starting to doubt Hitler's abilities. Like General Warlimont, Deputy Chief of Operations.
We're heading for a two-front war, something we've managed to avoid until now. We need someone to stand up to the Führer. But who?
For 20 years, Hitler has dreamed of a war to wipe out communism.
Communism is a huge threat to our future. We have to forget all solidarity between soldiers. This is a war of extermination.
On June 22, 1941, at dawn, more than 3 million German soldiers crossed the Soviet border. The treaty between Hitler and Stalin is broken. Operation Barbarossa has begun. Karl Fuchs, gunner in the 7th Panzer Division.
This war isn't so bad. The Russians are running everywhere. Yesterday I destroyed a Russian tank. If I get another one, I'll earn my first medal. We'll show those Bolshevik pigs. If you could see me, I'm all tanned. We're all convinced victory is near.
As the months go by, thousands of Soviet soldiers are taken prisoner. A German officer writes to his wife,
Dear Hannah, the number of prisoners grows every day. Our battalion is in charge of them. Some are executed on the spot. It's not too hard to do, since we tell ourselves they've killed German soldiers. Please, Dante, read this to our son.
before the war ends, over 3 million Soviet POWs will die in German camps. August 26, 1941, Hitler visits the Eastern Front. The Red Army is in retreat. Whole regions of Russia have fallen to Hitler. He claims living space for Germans in the East and wants to follow the British Empire's example.
Russia will be for us what India is to England. I wish I could make Germans understand how vital this space is for us. Let's learn from the British colonial experience. It's about dividing up a cake, being the first to run it, to manage it, and to exploit it.
But Hitler and his generals can defeat the Red Army before the harsh Russian winter sets in. They have to halt Operation Barbarossa. That ends when Hitler learns his allies, the Japanese, have bombed the US fleet at Pearl Harbor. It ends December 7th, 1941. Hitler now has a new enemy, the United States.
Nothing will make us doubt. I'm the Führer of a Reich that will last 1,000 years. Churchill and Roosevelt are in their own little world, run by plutocrats. Behind the scenes, the Jews are pulling the strings. Me, I've got my whole people behind me.
As soon as winter ends, Hitler launches a new offensive. He's convinced the Red Army is on its knees. Lieutenant Wilhelm Prüller.
At last, we're back in action. Mr. Stalin, we're going on the offensive again. Neither you nor your thugs can stop us. There's a deafening noise. Explosions, endless racket. Everything's in the fog. Good thing this war isn't happening on German soil.
When the German army reaches the Volga River, Hitler orders them to take the city of Stalingrad. The German soldiers are over 2,000 kilometers from home, terribly exposed. The general suggests the Führer should pull back. That makes Hitler furious.
You think you need to tell me what soldiers at the front are going through? Where were you during the First World War? I demand you show the same resolve as our soldiers at the front.
Hitler, no retreat. Three months later, the Red Army takes Tona and over 200,000 German soldiers at Stalingrad.
Auf Posten in einsamer Nacht, da steht ein Soldat und hält Wacht, träumt von Hanne und dem Glück, das zu Hause blieb zurück. Die Wolken am Himmel sie ziehen.
People are getting ready to celebrate Christmas. Some families of soldiers trapped in Stalingrad get news by airmail.
Siehe einmal auch ich,
Soldier Werner Bunman writes,
alles vorüber.
My dear son, I hope this is the last Christmas you spend without me. The Russians pulled a dirty trick on us. It's minus 30 degrees here. We'd be better off somewhere warm. Hope to see you next year. Affectionately, your father, Werner.
"5 weeks later, the 90,000 survivors of the German army at Stalingrad finally surrender. 80,000 of them will die in captivity in the Soviet Union. Werner Bullmann is one of them. Hitler's war is claiming more and more victims. Now old men and teenagers are being drafted to defend the German homeland. Diary of Wolfgang Feindeisen, age 15.
We've replaced the adults so they can go to the front. Before, real soldiers used to handle these guns. We're on guard 24/7, and it's great. It's a change from school. We're not kids anymore now. We've become men.
Now German territory itself is being attacked by air raids. The Allies are bombing the big cities. On July 27, 1943, 700 British bombers target the city of Hamburg. The fire is filmed by firefighter Hans Brunsvig.
It looks like a thunderstorm without rain. The heat from the fire is unbearable. There are people lying in the street. I want to help them, but they're already dead.
At dawn, Hamburg is a ghost town.
The streets of Hamburg are littered with burned bodies, sometimes just skeletons, or even just a small pile of ashes.
In Hamburg alone, more than 40,000 people are dead. Hitler's advisors suggest he go to the ruins to boost the people's morale. Albert Speer, Minister of Armaments.
With Goebbels, I tried to persuade Hitler. It was useless. Goebbels couldn't he help but compare Hitler's attitude to Churchill's. When I think of all the propaganda we could get from a visit like that.
But Hitler stays out of sight. He hides in his bunker on the Eastern Front.
If the German people no longer have the strength or will to sacrifice, if they're not ready to give their blood, they deserve to disappear and be wiped out by a superior power. If that happens, I won't shed a tear.
Hidden in the forests of eastern Germany is Hitler's secret HQ, the Wolf's Lair. A vast complex of buildings camouflaged among the trees and underground bunkers. This is where Hitler runs the war from. His health is getting worse. He suffers from heart problems and the first symptoms of Parkinson's disease, as General Guderian notes.
Hitler has aged a lot since the last time I saw him. He's hunched over. His hands shake. His eyes have lost their usual spark. He gets angry easily. His words and actions have become unpredictable.
June 6, 1944, at dawn, the Allies launched the reconquest of occupied Europe. It is D-Day. Paradoxically, Hitler is delighted by the news.
What great news! As long as they were in England, they were out of reach. But now we've got them at our mercy. We can destroy them.
But within 24 hours, the lines are broken. Hitler's soldiers are overwhelmed by the Allied war machine. At Ouistreham, Marine Rifleman Marcel Labat lands with the Free French under Commander Kiefer.
We all carry a deep hatred for the Germans. They tortured and killed many of our people. They weakened France. They want us all dead, and that's why we have to finish them.
By the evening of June 6th, 7,000 Allied soldiers are dead, including Marcel Labat. But now the Allied armies are setting the pace for Hitler's troops. French territory is hit by heavy bombing. "20,000 civilians will die under the bombs." A 12-year-old girl, Réjeanne Leproust, writes her thoughts in a school notebook.
A violent bombing wakes us up. Everything shakes. It feels like the church is going to collapse. It's scary. The inside of the house is gone. Only the masonry is left standing. Mom says we came here to find death.
But a few days later, when she sees the first Allied soldier, Réjeanne writes, "In just a few weeks, hope changes sides." In Germany, people hear that a bomb exploded in the Wolf's Lair in East Prussia. A group of officers conspired against Hitler. The Führer barely escapes.
Now I have proof. The whole high command is infected, and I've got the bastards who've been sabotaging me for years. Now I know why my big plans failed. I've been betrayed.
Hitler has 5,000 people arrested. 200 of them are executed. The German army is attacked on all fronts. Hitler now puts all his hopes in a new weapon. For over 12 years, at a secret site in northern Germany, a team of scientists has been working on a long-range ballistic missile. The first launch is filmed in color. The head of the research team, General Dornberger, shows it to Hitler.
A look of fanaticism lit up his eyes. He started yelling, "I want them canceled." They thought this new weapon would turn the tide of the war. Our missile was renamed V2, Vengeance Weapon Number 2.
.300 twos are fired at London, killing nearly 3,000 people. But it's nowhere near a threat of annihilation. In fact, the opposite is happening. The German Reich is now surrounded by the Allies and the Soviets. French North African forces and American troops have landed in Provence. The resistance is preparing the ground for them. FFI and FTP are harassing the German troops. Marseille and Paris rise up against the occupiers. August 24, 1944, General Leclerc's 2nd Armored Division enters the capital. In one of its tanks is Captain Raymond Drone of the Free French Forces.
People rushed toward our vehicles. Covered in dust and diesel, we didn't look good, but people hugged us anyway. The Porte d'Italie was quickly flooded by a human tide. We'd dreamed of freeing the country for so long. Now, we were making that dream come true.
Refusing again to consider retreat, Hitler ordered General von Scholtitz to destroy Paris. But the German governor chooses to surrender to General Leclerc. For the first time in 4 years, the French flag flies over the capital.
Paris, Paris outragé, Paris brisé, Paris martyrisé, mais Paris libéré.
General de Gaulle is in Paris, but the war is far from over. The fighting is now on German soil. Hitler keeps telling his people they can still win the war. But in private, he's a broken man.
I know we've lost the war. The enemy's superiority is overwhelming. I've been betrayed. I should shoot myself in the head. But we will never surrender. If we go down, the whole world will go down with us.
On April 11, 1945, more than 2 months after the Soviets liberated Auschwitz, the Allies enter Buchenwald. It's one of the 1,000 concentration camps of the Nazi death machine. Udo Dietmar is one of the few survivors.
At Buchenwald, We'd reached the height of horror. People were dying of hunger. Those who could still move would collapse from starvation. There were mountains of bodies. The crematorium and the yard were filled with corpses. I still hear my friends who died there. They told me, if you make it out, tell people what they did to us. I'll never forget.
The Americans gathered the people from the nearby village and forced them to come see the atrocities committed in their name. Renat Simone is one of those villagers. She's 18 years old.
I couldn't believe my eyes. They'd piled up the bodies. The smell was unimaginable. I was about to faint. Then a GI called out to me. "Hey you, Miss Hitler, look, look!"
The Nazis murdered 6 million Jews. April 1945. The Red Army reaches the banks of the Oder River, 100 kilometers from Berlin. The Allies, in the west, are closing in on the German capital. From his underground bunker in central Berlin, Hitler orders every man able to fight to defend the capital. No matter the storm,
Every soldier must do his duty. Anyone who refuses is a traitor. Anyone who orders you to retreat will be arrested and executed on the spot.
the Allies have overwhelming superiority, more than 5-1. The Reich's forces are wiped out. On April 21st, the Russians enter Berlin. More than 13 million Soviet soldiers died in this war. The Red Army lets its soldiers celebrate victory in their own way. A 24-year-old Berliner, Ile de Garde Christophe, testifies.
The Russians forbade us to lock our doors. With a machine gun in hand, they gathered us in an empty house where they dragged other young women. They took turns attacking us all night long. A pack of brutes. By morning, they were gone. We went home, hugging the walls. Since then, several women have killed themselves.
More than 1 million German women were raped. In the ruins of the Chancellery, Hitler's underground bunker is discovered. But it's empty. Hitler finally married his mistress Eva Braun and killed himself.
So as not to suffer the shame of surrender, my wife and I choose death. We want to be cremated immediately.
Only a few charred bones will be found among the rubble. The war Hitler wanted is finally over. Now it's the Germans' turn to live a nightmare. Edelgard Seidel, 15 years old.
We were sure victory was near. And now, it's all over. Are we going to be destroyed too? Us, one of the most cultured peoples on Earth. It's a shame we'll never recover from.
The war claimed 50 million lives. Before killing himself, Hitler wrote his political testament.
Neither I nor anyone in Germany wanted this war. It was foreign politicians, Jews or those working for Jews, who caused it. I die with a light heart because I know the greatness of what our soldiers, women, workers, and youth have accomplished. This contribution is unique in history,